Forever, tyrant! Once Lewis Powell has gotten rid of the other people in the house, he lunges in for William Seward and strikes knife blows at his face. Powell manages to slice Seward's face up. When Robinson sees what is happening, he fights Powell, who keeps fighting, unafraid. Booth had many conspirators that he had sent to kill other important people of the government, all helping him, all protecting his fate. And that's when the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth started. After shooting Lincoln, Booth ran away on his one-eyed horse to try to escape the Union soldiers. He wanted to get to Maryland, where he thought he would be treated like a hero. On his way out of Washington, Booth had to cross the bridge and had to try to convince the guard, Sergeant Silas T. Cobb, to let him pass. Hesitant, the guard finally lets him pass, even though it's past curfew. This picture depicts Harold and Booth crossing the bridge, even though in reality they crossed separately. After crossing the bridge, Booth and Harold's first destination was to the Surratt's Tavern in Surrattsville, Maryland, 13 miles out of Washington. Booth and Harold needed to go to the Surratt's Tavern because they needed to pick up the shooting irons that they had ordered from Mary Surratt and that Mary had ordered from Dr. Lloyd. The shooting irons were weapons. Harold and Booth's second destination was the Mud Farm, which was the home of Dr. Samuel A. Mudd. The Mud Farm was an unplanned destination for Booth, but it was necessary now that he had hurt his leg. Booth knew Samuel Mudd because he had helped him plan another plot against Lincoln earlier. Dr. Mudd took Booth into his house, examined his leg, and then gave him a room with a bed. Mudd did not know that Booth had assassinated Lincoln, and Harold had participated in the plan. Mudd made some crutches for Booth in the morning, and after warning Booth that the manhunters were on their way looking for him, he and Harold fled on Saturday of April 15 at 3 p.m. After Dr. Mudd had told them the way to go, Booth and Harold went to Rich Hill owned by Captain Samuel Cox. Harold and Booth stayed in a pine thicket in Cox's house where nobody would find them. Cox gave them blankets, food, and other necessities. They stayed there for 2 nights, from April 18th through April 20th, until Thomas Jones finally was able to help them cross the Potomac River to Virginia. After Booth and Harold left Rich Hill and were crossing the river, they got lost and wounded up even more north than they had been before. They spent the night in Dense Meadow, waiting patiently till the following evening so that they could set off again towards Virginia. During their stay at Dense Meadow, Booth and Harold also went to Hugg's farm owned by John J. Hugg. When the conspirators finally got back to Virginia, they were met by a man named Dr. Richard Stewart, who did not want them in his house but decided to help them by sending them to a black man named Lucas. Booth forced Lucas and his son to let Harold and he stay at their cabin by threatening them. The morning that Booth and Harold left the Lucas farm, Booth paid them $20 for their service, which included the wagon, team, and driver. After a while, Booth and Harold came to a man named John Garrett, who offered them help. While Harold left with Garrett to a nearby town, Booth spent the night at the Garrett farm, where he made up a story for the Garrett family, saying that he had been wounded in battle and that the Union cavalry was chasing him. Booth was treated with much hospitality at the Garrett farm and given a bed to rest in, but he only stayed 2 nights because Garrett was suspicious of them. John Garrett told Booth and Harold that he did not want them sleeping in his house, but that he would let them sleep in the tobacco barn. What Booth and Harold didn't know was that they were walking into a trap, for Garrett locked the door of the barn so that they wouldn't be able to get out. Willie Jett told the Union cavalry where Booth and Harold were, and the conspirators were found and arrested at the Garrett farm in the tobacco barn. When Booth opened the doors of the barn, Boston Corbett shot him.